What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about Bigsby stuff because I have this very cool Texas Toast Guitars American Icon with a Bigsby on it, and I want to replace the strings on it, and it works pretty good. The only thing is there's a little something here I want to fix with the bar itself. It's got a little too much play in it. So since we have to put new strings on the guitar today, I was thinking let's go ahead and just kind of go over what we would normally do to set up a Bigsby properly so that it stays in tune, because that's a fight that a lot of people have, but it's actually really easy to do. There's a couple of main principles that you might want to know. Let's do it. The way a Bigsby works is pretty self-explanatory, really, but let's go over it real quick. You push down on this bar, the tension is equalized between the tension of the strings and the this spring here. So there's like a balance between the two. Personally, one of the first things I do when I set up a Bigsby is I usually run 10 to 46 strings. It just makes it easier. If you run lighter strings, the equalization between the tension of all of this is not as stable. So I just like to run 10s. It's just kind of, it's been my thing for a long time to do that. This basically, the way this works is this roller right here, this is a roller and there's bearings in here, keeps your break angle over the back of the strings correct. A lot of people will skip this roller, but the problem is then you have a straight pull goes all the way across here and you lose downward pressure on your saddles, and you'll actually make your tuning stability worse, okay? The theory of a Bigsby vibrato is that it is just a little bit of subtlety. A lot of folks will be like, well, if the strings scrape across here, then friction and blah, blah, blah. Really, all we're doing is we're really just detensioning the strings more than we are actually sliding the strings back and forth. Now, they will move a little bit, but we're really just relaxing them. It's a fraction of an inch. We're not talking about like moving it a half inch or anything. A Bigsby is subtle, so if you use it correctly, tuning stability won't be a big problem at all. But the thing that's bugging me is right here. There's a little phenolic piece in here, and then there is a nut and another spring inside this arm. And see how much you have to move it before it starts to move. So I want to tighten that up. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to check to make sure that everything is square on the guitar. Another thing that will cause tuning stability problems with a Bigsby is if you over tighten these screws, and because this bar and this bar need to be perfectly parallel. If one is kinked, like cocked off to the side because one of these screws is over tightened, then you'll have tuning stability problems because the Bigsby won't move correctly. The other thing is that it could bind the arm and not allow it to center. Let me get the strings off of this guitar and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we've got the strings off, and this is probably the most important thing to Bigsby stability. Anytime you use a vibrato, quote unquote tremolo, of any kind, the whole point is that when you let go, it returns to where you started. The strings, the position of the strings and the tension of the strings return to where you started. So once you use it and you let go, it springs back. That is the core of tuning stability with any vibrato system. Anything that keeps it from doing that, friction here, friction at the nut, or with a Bigsby, that right there should not be possible. You should have a completely free moving tremolo arm. So what we need to do then is this screw right here and this screw right here need to be adjusted. Now, the sustain bros are going to tell you that this needs to be as tight to the guitar as possible because sustain bro, but that is not the case. Bigsby's actually come on these little rubber or felt, depending on the model, grommets, and the idea is for this thing, the tension of the Bigsby is actually going through the strings. It's not, doesn't have to be bolted to the guitar. It's actually fastened to the guitar back here. These are really for stability. So what we want to do, and off camera, I tightened this to make it do this. What we really want to do is we want to make this be so loose and freestanding, free moving, that this just make sure that this is 100% loose, okay? If this were to freeze at any point in here, then the tension of these screws, see like that? So what I should do is loosen that just a little bit. And now, these bars, this bar right here is not tightened one way or the other to be out of parallel with this. Because what will happen is it will bind up these bearings and you'll have friction in your Bigsby. The other thing I want to do while we have it apart is I want to tighten this up so that this arm is nice and snug. All right, so I just want to really tighten up this spring nice and snug, not over tight, but just snug. Where now when I move this whole thing will move and it won't have this weird wiggle in there. It's supposed to be able to like swivel out of the way, and if you swivel it out of the way a bunch of times it might loosen up a little bit. There's a little nylock nut on here, so getting that tension right with that little spring and that nylon nut is what's key to this. And it's a preference thing, but I like mine to be as tight as possible so that it works the best for the actual action of it. All right, and then we're gonna take that, put that back underneath there. Let's just make sure that we don't have any creaking or anything. Yeah, see, that's way better. So now every time I move this, that moves instead of it flexing right here, which is sweet. And then these babies are nice and loose. Everything's nice and loose, nice and free. Let's go ahead and throw a set of strings back on it. All right, before we put strings on this thing, just find a piece of junk packing foam laying around your house, wherever. I just found this out of an amp box. Yeah, that'll work. And then I'll show you the trick. When we're putting our strings on, you just use this to hold the string on as you're doing it. So I know there will be a lot of people that'll get in the comments and say, you know, that tuning stability is basically impossible with a Bigsby, but really tuning stability with a Bigsby is no different than any other single action tremolo. And I don't mean double action like a Floyd, but any other single action tremolo. All right, so then I just take the string and I just kind of bend it around my finger. Don't kink it, but you just bend it around your finger. Go under here, and what I do is the high E and the low E first for a couple of reasons. One is because it's closest to the edge and it's the hardest to do. So then you just take your foam, pull up on the string so that it's nice and tight against there. Take your foam and that'll hold it while I now go down to the other end of the guitar and put the string through the machine. Another trick for the end of the string is just take your string winder or something small, or maybe like a pencil, and just kind of kink it around it like that, and it'll give you sort of the shape you want. I would also recommend putting the under string underneath the bar first, then the string on the pin, pull up on it, stuff your piece of foam underneath there to hold it, and then that just keeps tension on the whole thing. Now we'll go back down to the other end and put this string on. So now there's tension on the high E and the low E. Go ahead and repeat, put the other 4 strings on. I won't bore you with that part, but then once we get this back together, we'll go ahead and look at our tuning stability and play around with how that bar feels once it's all tightened up and everything's nice and freed up. Okay, so here we go. This is it. It worked awesome. Kind of messing around. Let's just check how in tune we are. Good. Stayed in tune after kind of our little messing around sesh there. Might be one string that's a little out. Okay, so we need to talk about this a little bit because here's a couple of things that have to happen. If you're going to have success with a Bigsby, there's a couple of things that need to happen. One is you need to get over whatever myths and dumb stuff there is on the internet about it, okay? That's number one. And number two is you need to get back to the fundamentals of what a vibrato is and how you use it, and what tuning stability really is probably the third thing. So, actually, let's take those backwards. Tuning stability. Number one, we talked about this earlier. Tuning stability is when you play something, a note, and you take it away from that note, right? And then you let go of it, it should go back. That's all tuning stability is. You let go of the note, and it has to happen when you bend a string or when you move them all with a vibrato. So as long as you can do that, that's the key. And the key to that is friction, because we don't want things to bend, we don't want things to get stuck and then not go back. And then with a Bigsby, it's really important to make sure that all this mechanism actually moves very freely. So the other thing is managing expectations with what a Bigsby is for. This is not to dive bomb. This is not a Floyd, okay? So if you're not familiar with Bigsbys, they are a very subtle vibrato tool. Now we can dive bomb a Bigsby, but here's what happens. You'll be able to hear this. Hear that creak? That's the strings grinding across the saddles. Now you could put a roller saddle in there if you want. There's a whole bunch of different things you could do, but that's not what a Bigsby is for. Let's see if this thing's still in tune. Let's double check it again. All right, so after doing that, we went sharp on the D. Actually went sharp on the 3 wound strings, which is exactly what happens because you grind the windings across the saddle. But the thing is that's not what a Bigsby is for. This is what a Bigsby is for. That's not moving the string across the saddle. That's just adjusting the tension of the entire set. If you use a Bigsby for its intended purposes, it will always stay in tune, provided the guitar is properly set up. So you don't, people that say, I can't keep a Bigsby in tune, there's a couple things that are happening. One is they're not using it right because they have not the improper expectations of it. And two, it's not set up correctly, and so you have this friction or this freeness thing. Now the third part of it is that you kind of have to suspend everything you hear on the internet and myths and all that crap. There's a couple of things I would never ever do. I would never use that stupid little bar on the back of here to hook your strings on. Just put your big boy pants on, find yourself a little piece of foam, stick it underneath there and do it right. Adding another component in is just going to add another point of wiggle, movement, failure, looseness, that kind of thing, right? So don't add more to it. There's been many hit records made with a Bigsby where you can make it through a few songs, you can play a couple songs at a gig, and you can then retune in between songs. That's not tuning stability problems, that's just Bigsby life, okay? It'll stay in tune enough for real life. I also would never do this over the bar thing because you need, for a Bigsby to work properly and for your guitar to sound good, you need this break angle over the saddles. You need the downward pressure on the saddles for tone and for tuning stability. If you don't have that, and we were to go straight over the top here, you would get a little rattle in there, and then you would also get very light downward pressure on the saddles, and it would completely change everything and actually give you more trouble. So don't do any of that dumb stuff that people do. Just keep it simple with the design of the guitar. The other myth and thing you just kind of have to get out of your head is sustain, bro. This screw and this screw need to be adjusted. That's why this is adjustable. Okay, so there's foam underneath here, or in this case, there's actually rubber. This has like little rubber stoppers. On a B5, that's like on a Tele, there will be little foam pieces underneath there, little foam washers. This does not have to, oh, I got to take those foam washers and then bolt it straight to the guitar because sustain, bro. You're just going to not, your Bigsby's not going to work right. This is meant to be flatly adjusted so that this is 100% perfect continuous plane across here. On a hollow body guitar like this or on a Telecaster, you cannot be guaranteed that it's going to be completely flat. That's why it's adjustable. The anchor point for a Bigsby on this type of guitar is back here. This is where it anchors to the guitar, not here. This is just for stability and to keep it straight. On a B5, there's 2 screws in the back that it anchors to, but the 2 in the front are for adjustability. This applies to real Bigsbys. So this is like a B7 or whatever this is, and then a B5. Now, if it has a B50 or a B500, that means that those are import Bigsbys and they don't have the sealed bearings like this one does. They'll have like a plastic bushing in them. So everything I'm telling you will still work, but maybe there will be always a little bit more friction in there because it's a plastic bushing instead of a bearing. Okay, so just know that on the import stuff. People will say, well, does this apply to the knockoffs that I can get on eBay? The theory applies. The effectiveness may not be quite there because friction and because quality of manufacturing. So just know that you might be limited by, you know, those things, even though the theory and like how it all works actually is really a thing. So there you go. Don't do any of the dumb stuff. Keep it super simple and play the guitar. 10 to 46s I would recommend. If those of you who have experience with Bigsbys and keep them in tune, want to chime in on this and any other little things they've found, let me know. Put that in the comments. And there you go. There's how you keep a Bigsby in tune. Pretty easy, actually. Same as any other guitar with a Floyd or a, well, maybe not a Floyd. Anything that has friction. So a synchronized tremolo on a Stratocaster, a two-post trem like on a PRS, any kind of pivot style or vibrato style, slide style like this. It's basically the same theory. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you in the next video. Do me a favor, like and subscribe, all that stuff. Also, we have Strat stuff and loaded pickguards on sale this week, 10% off. No discount code needed. Just chuck it in the cart, and you're good to go. We'll see you later.